This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
Take us to kickoff.
It is time for the student section every Monday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, alongside Big Man on Campus and Kelly Stewart. I am Drew Martin. We're going to be hitting on college football from a betting angle. And if you like betting on weekday night action, this is the show for you. This week it starts, guys. We got a bunch of good games here, starting in the Sun Belt Tuesday night with App State, Arkansas State, and we'll get your two opinion plus mine plus the chat box on what everybody's looking to bet. But Kelly, follow her on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited for this week's games, Drew. We finally get some exciting ones and some teams I know a little bit more about than just some of the, the basics.
Yeah, for sure. And it's pretty cool to have them on weekdays. Do you find yourself betting more on the weeknight games?
No, I really don't touch them that much. I did end up on Utah State after our conversation last week. Nice, easy one. But typically, we don't see that exciting of games, especially we see them from the smaller conferences, which some of you guys definitely specialize in. I don't. I'm a total Big 12 girl, Pac-12, SEC, Big 10. The Power 5 schools is what I tend to focus on because that's where I do a lot of media. So really excited to see a Texas Tech TCU game, Arizona, Utah, and even a nice Mountain West game on a Friday night.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, stick to what you know. We do have the Big 12 and Texas Tech TCU and also the Pac-12 Arizona Utah right here coming up. And our other guest on the show, a mainstay on the SBR network, Jeff Nadeau. Follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau. He's the big man on campus. Welcome in, buddy.
Always good to chat with you guys, Drew. Happy Monday. Always looking forward to more college football. We got basketball coming up. Drew, I'm murdering the NBA preseason. That's just what I do. I murder the NBA preseason. I murk these lines. I get them. I fire on them, and I cash tickets, baby. But it's all about college football on this show. Let's get into it.
All right, NBA preseason. Kelly, have you ever touched the NBA preseason?
I every once in a while get some little bit of insight. I got some guys down over the Westgate that do a lot of stuff like, hey, just so you know, LeBron's not playing tonight. Hey, just so you know, they're sitting there 5, blah, 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 guys. And then I just still don't bet it. Like, I get all this great inside information. Literally, big man's going to hate this. I hate betting on the NBA. It makes me want to beat my head against the wall half the time when, grown men who get paid millions of dollars miss free throws to not cover or, make free throws when they normally wouldn't, whatever it may be. It gets super frustrating. So again, going back to what you said, stick with what I know. NBA, I bet I could name 20 NBA players. It's terrible.
I'm with you. I mean, I bet MLB spring training. I bet the Little League World Series. I bet NFL preseason. I've never touched an NBA preseason game, big man.
Guys, listen. Here's the little secret. I don't know shit about it either. Okay? You don't have to know anything. I just look at the line, right? I see 94% on one side, and the line goes the other way, and I just bet the other way. Very simple.
A little bit of reverse line movement.
Yeah, I look at it for 20 seconds. Easy. It's not even fair. It's not even fair. I don't know nothing. Fair. I don't know plays. I don't know nothing. And during the regular season, it's the same way. You do not need to know anything about the NBA to win in it. I guarantee you. I promise.
That's
well,
great.
We got some people in the chat box. Yeah, follow the market, the reverse line movement, like you said, Kelly. And we got Corey saying BMOC's fired up. That makes for a good show. Glad to have you fired up, BMOC. And Ricky agreeing with you, Kelly, saying the NBA sucks, Kelly. But, hey, guys, this is a college football betting show, and we got a good one on Tuesday night. App State versus Arkansas State. A lot of people would consider these two teams the best two teams in the Sun Belt Conference. Looks like we're seeing 9 or 9.5 in the marketplace. 60.5 is what BetOnline just came out with the total not long ago. Big man, I know you know Sun Belt Conference college football betting pretty well. Do you have any kind of insight here on this game and looking to bet it at all?
I am, Drew, and I'm actually looking at this from a little different wavelength than I think a lot of people will. I think a lot of people are going to look at this game tomorrow night and say, wow, I'm getting two Sunbelt teams, two of the best Sunbelt teams, and I'm getting 9.5 points at home with a team in Ark State that's probably just as good. I'm not ready to say they're just as good. I think you said not so fast, my friend, in this one. Appalachian State, the only concern I have with them is how good is this team? I mean, they haven't really played anyone in the one step-up game. they actually played pretty well against Penn State, almost won that game. So I guess you could say they have played someone and they played well at it. You also look at the fact that this Arkansas State team is absolutely horrendous against the run. I mean, they're giving up almost 6 yards a carry, 244 yards a game. And for the layperson, that means they're 123rd in the country against the run out of 130 teams. Arkansas State has given up 658 yards on the ground over the last 2 games. And you look at one thing App State wants to do, develop the run. I think a lot of people are going to grab the points here and say, oh, there's no way they lose by double digits. When in retrospect, I think our Appalachian State are a better football team than Arkansas State. I haven't been majorly impressed with this group. They've went out and they've had some poor showings. Look at the showing against Georgia Southern being the real big one. You lose that game to a team you probably should be able to beat. They ran for they ran for 348 yards on you. That's a bit of a concern. I'm actually going to side with App State here. I think they go in, and I think they show the rest of the conference that it's a one-team race here. I think they go in and beat up Arkansas State.
All right, big man. So liking the favorite, and you can find them as low as 9 right now using SBR odds. Kelly, what about you? Do you think that Georgia Southern game is as alarming as big man's making it sound, or is Georgia Southern pretty damn good and beat him at home?
Listen, I am not discrediting that Georgia Southern's not pretty damn good. We saw them last week beat up on a South Alabama team. A lot of sharp guys were on, but I had talked about this Arkansas State team, and I think our hopes were a little bit higher for them than they actually were. That Alabama loss still really, really ugly. They did beat a mediocre, not even mediocre, UNLV team. They beat Tulsa. But besides that, this team hasn't really covered a spread minus that Tulsa game. And so here's a team where I'm not really ready to step in front of this Appalachian State team who has covered all 4 of their games. And as Big Man said, it's hard to forget how well they played in that Penn State game. Granted, Penn State may have been overlooking them, but I believe it was 3 overtimes they went to week 1. I'm looking at App State here. I think that they are about evenly matched here on offense, but also to tag along what Big Man said, if you can't stop the run, how is Arkansas State going to win this game, let alone cover? The only way I can really look in this one is App State. I'm looking at I use a buddy's power rankings mainly because I'm entirely too busy to do my own, and I'm looking at he's got this game. He's got them rated 11 points better on a neutral field. That says the line's probably right. I haven't been to Arkansas State. I can't tell you exactly what their home field's worth. Even on a crazy Saturday night, or a crazy Thursday night, I'm not going to give them too many points here. But yeah, App State or nothing for me.
Okay, yeah, and this game in Jonesboro, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. So there's going to be a whole lot of tickets written on this game as far as it's a singled-out college football game, a lot of bets on it. So it will be interesting to see which way the line goes. Which way does the public go?
That's a great point.
Which way do you think it goes?
I think you're going to see it probably be a little bit of a false flag. I think you'll see the public on the dog here. But I have a feeling it's going to sit right where it is or maybe even go up to 10 or something. I think it's going to be a weird one. And I think a lot of the public will fall into the trap and say, they know what Arkansas State has been. But I think you and I and Kelly all know that this probably isn't that team. Okay, they're solid, but I don't think they're anything special. And they can't stop anyone on defense. So I think the line will you would think it would go down a little bit, but I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of public money come in here, and it's going to go to 10, and you're going to think, why the hell is that line going to 10 when the public's on Arkansas State? You're getting a home dog here, and a lot of people I think will overvalue that. The home atmosphere in Jonesboro is, I don't think really anything to really write home about.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I don't think we're going to see this line drop on this one at all. Even if there's a ton of public money, I think it's just going to sit steady and the books are going to scoop up one side of the action.
So Kelly, because a lot of times in these MAC and Sun Belt games, when it's a singled out game like this, it could go from 9 to 6.5, and just the same. It could go to 12.5 or 13. You don't see that happening?
Absolutely. Well, this is the first Tuesday game of the year, and I think we're going to have to see what the sharp guys play it on. I mean, the sharp guys love to play MAC and Sun Belt games, as you know, and typically they're on the right side, but we've also seen them do those fake moves early on where they may come in on the dog, may drop the line to, like you said, it may move 3-4 points, 6.5, and then they come back on the other side of App State, hammer it over the key number of 7. I mean, that is a possibility. It does happen a lot, and typically We see it in more games where there's maybe 3 or 4 MAC games in a week where they'll play all 4 games and then be on the right side of all 4 of them. It's a very weird thing. Sometimes if you watch the screen, you can see kind of what they're trying to do here. I'm not sure 100%, but I cannot see the sharp guys being on the dog here.
And Kelly, obviously with your proxy service, can you do this game in any of the contests, the Tuesday night games?
So you can't, because the lines don't come out until Wednesday afternoon. So for example, Drew, the Golden Nugget contest that you're in, the lines don't come out till 2:00 on Wednesday. So sometimes they'll include the Wednesday night games if they are available and you have enough time to get down there, but you will not see any of the Tuesday games, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. And guys, we can just move down the line. We got Thursday night's action. Texas Tech TCU in the Big 12, 62.5. Bet Online just came out with this total right now, and it looks like the Horned Frogs laying 7.5 at home. Kelly, Big 12, you know it as well as anybody. What are you looking for in Texas Tech TCU?
I did take the bait with Texas Tech against West Virginia, and they looked terrible early on. They had a chance to get back in it, threw a late interception, didn't get the cover. But I still do have this Texas Tech team rated a little bit higher than other people do, and I have a little bit of faith in them here in this spot. I think 7.5 is just a little too many. I think the game should be closer to 6. So if I'm getting a 1.5 worth of value on Thursday night in Dallas, this isn't going to be, TCU doesn't have some insane home field advantage. I do think they have the coaching edge here in Gary Patterson. I think he's a much better coach than Cliff, but you have to remember Cliff is still in the hot seat. Just because you beat Oklahoma State as a double-digit dog doesn't mean you get to save your job. So they've got to pick up some wins here, and I think this is one that they could pick up. And then obviously they'll probably pick up one at KU, and that might be it for the rest of the season. At Iowa State's always a tough place to play, Oklahoma and Texas, so I think this is a win, a must win to say if this team wants to go to a bowl game.
Yeah, interesting. He is on the hot seat, and they do got to go bowling. I mean, big man, I know what you think of Cliff Kingsbury, so I'm guessing you think the 7.5 with TCU, you would look to lay it here?
I have some real questions about this game. I'm going to be honest. I'm not running to the window to bet either side, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all is, who are you going to have playing in this game? I mean, Sean Robinson, the quarterback for TCU, has got a shoulder injury. Kavonte Turpin's undisclosed. He may not play. Then you look at the other side of the ball. None of these quarterbacks at Texas Tech can stay healthy. McLean Carter, we haven't seen him in a while. Alan Bowman's been in and out of the lineup. And look, not for nothing, I'm not really in love with this Jet Duffy kid. He played pretty well against West Virginia, but he was pretty inaccurate. He threw 2 interceptions against a much better defense. You would have to imagine he has a little bit more trouble. But I think Kelly makes a good point. If you want to go to a bowl game, you got to find a way to win games like this, have a shot to even win games like this, even late. There's too many question marks for this game. I will throw out, though, the fact that Tech has covered 6 of 9 as a dog of 3.5 to 10 points. So they're grabbing points in these games, generally playing pretty well with them. But I got to see a little bit more from injury reports before I evaluate this game. There are too many question marks. I just don't want I don't want anything with TCU until I know if Robinson's playing, and I don't really want anything with Texas Tech until I find out who's going to play quarterback. If it's Bowman, I could consider maybe taking the points here.
Yeah, I can see that as well. And what about it being a short week? A Thursday night here with both teams did play on Saturday, correct?
No, both are off
I don't believe so. I think, I was gonna say they're both off a bye, so
okay.
that always helps.
Yeah. So as far as preparing for this game, it's not like Texas Tech is at that big of a disadvantage as far as a short week. Although in the handicap, it could mean more to Kelly's point of the coaching advantage, Gary Patterson, with the extra preparation time.
You got to figure if you don't. Go ahead, Kelly. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree with you. I think he is the better coach here, but also you have to remember Kingsbury. I'm looking 6-3 against the spread in their last 9 games versus TCU. Texas Tech has covered, and then also TCU has not been great. 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games at home. Is just not really that great of a stat as far as a betting perspective. So even though Gary may have the coaching edge and can win this game, that doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily cover.
Good point. And you got that hook on the 7, which obviously
I think that's really what intrigued me when I first saw it. Usually send us the list of games and I go, ooh, I'm getting a hook with Tech. And then I looked into it a little bit more. And like I said, I thought the game should have been about 6. Unless you want to give TCU a little bit more credit. But again, it's not Saturday night. This is still a Thursday night game where I just am not. I mean, I've been to the stadium. It can get rocking, but it's nothing like Texas Tech has seen. I mean, they can go to Norman, they can go to Manhattan, Kansas. They can even go. I would go as far as to say that TCU and Baylor probably have the two worst home advantages in the Big 12. Maybe besides KU, I guess. I forget about KU every once in a while.
Are they even in the Big 12, you know?
Sometimes I have to remind myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just said sometimes I have to remind myself that they're actually in the Big 12 and that you can't. This year I have to remind myself that K-State can't just circle them as a win. I'm terrified of that game. Luckily, you get to play in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah, for sure. What about this TCU? So you've been there. It's kind of a smaller Big 12 stadium. I mean, it does have an upper deck and everything, but you don't think it's good?
It's a smaller school. It's a smaller stadium. It's a nice stadium, but it is not some massive home field advantage. I mean, it's not going to a Texas Longhorns game in Austin. It's not. Texas A&M used to be in the Big 12, and when they were going to Kyle Field was just insane. And then we lose A&M, we pick up TCU, and we're going, this is where we're gonna like K-State. I've been to 2 games in Dallas, or I guess technically Fort Worth. Which one is it? I don't even remember anymore. They're like the same city to me. But that being said, like both games, it didn't feel like you could take the air out of the crowd very quickly. And here's the Texas Tech offense. They get up 2 scores. There's now no home field advantage. And we've seen Texas Tech be able to do that before. Not saying that they don't go up 2 scores and keep their foot on the gas, but their defense is going to give up 2 scores right after that.
Makes a lot of sense. And we got people in the chat box. Finland, what's up, you all? Finland salutes Drew, Kelly, and BMOC. BMOC, is Finland in Finland? Do you know?
Yeah, Finland is in Europe. The capital is Helsinki. It's a Nordic nation. Very nice area. They're known for hockey. Great place. I shout out to Finland, a country that I would love to go to someday. Drew, one day I will make it over and I will see the world. My goals are to get to Finland and Bari, Italy, and Kosovo, and all these different beautiful places in the world. Shout out to him. He lives in a great country. A probably beautiful place to be.
Yeah, welcome in, Finland. Glad that you're into betting on college football and watching the show. Kelly, have you ever been to Finland?
I have not. I've only been to Southern Europe, but as Big Man stated, it is definitely on my to-do list. I want to hit all of those little 3 countries up there, preferably during the summertime. Norway, Sweden, and Finland would be an awesome place to go. I have a good buddy that lives in Sweden from college, so I keep telling him one of these days I'm going to make my way over there, and I have a feeling my liver's not going to be able to handle it.
Have you guys ever thought of this? And I found this to be fascinating. You ever think about how big Russia is? Russia literally borders the U.S., Finland, Vietnam, and China, or actually China. It's a massive country. I never really thought about
Iran,
big Russia.
Turkey,
Afghanistan.
Like it goes all. It's like it's insane. Russia's on my to-do list too, man. I need to go there too.
There's a lot of time zones, and actually, I've always had an argument with people all the time because I'm a geography weirdo. I often say that I think Russia is an Asian country. 70% of it, I believe, is in Asia, yet it's considered a European country. So the landmass is mostly in Asia, but I don't know how many time zones. I would say several, probably 4 or 5.
At least 6 to 8, right? Don't you think? If you really start over at Alaska and all the way over, I'm going to Google that. Now I got to know. Thanks, Big Man.
Yeah.
All right, and also we got to take 30 seconds here bringing up Russia, but it is a college football betting show. We'll start with you, BMOC.
Oh yeah, you're a UFC guy.
They have 11 time zones.
Wow. 11.
I said 8, and I thought maybe I was hitting the over there.
Yeah, I thought 5 or 6. I'm thinking, whoa, wow, 11. Gee. That's amazing.
BMOC, start us off. 30 seconds, man. What is your thought on what happened at the UFC and what needs to happen going forward?
I don't think anything should happen to Khabib, frankly. Conor McGregor needs to stop involving politics, religion, and other mean things. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to tell you anybody this. If I ever caught anyone talking about my own father, I'd have a similar reaction to it. I thought Conor was out of line, and someone actually put him in his place for once. When you're still running your mouth, even after you get your ass handed to you. You still hear Conor's corner talking, hear Conor talking. Look, would I say that the friend that jumped into the ring, do I look at him and I think that was a good idea? No, of course not. He's probably going to have something to deal with, and he probably won't ever fight in the UFC again. But at the end of the day, we have to remember these guys are from Dagestan, Chechnya. It's a different world there. You're loyal to your friends and family. That's how I am. That's how these people are. When you're from other countries, you're from other areas, you start to act differently. It might not be something we recognize here, but it's what they do over there. And for them, they're being warriors, they're being men, and that's how men react. The truth is, though, you'll probably never see that kid again. Khabib, he'll probably have some issue as well. But the truth is, Drew, he's undefeated. What does he have to really prove anymore? As far as Conor winning a rematch, for what? Conor McGregor is one of the most overrated UFC fighters in the history of the sport. And I'll go out and say that. I'm not a big UFC guy, but he is. Every time he steps up, he loses. And that was no more evident this week. He got his ass kicked. And Khabib is just a way better fighter.
Kelly, what are your thoughts on what happened Saturday night in Las Vegas?
Okay, I'm gonna agree with Big Man. I'm gonna take the other side and we'll come full circle. So I agree. Conor deserved to get his ass kicked because he was running his mouth. Yes. But what happened after he lost in the ring, there's a gray area. What needs to be happening? Now, by all means, I could have been sitting there. I had friends that were a few rows behind. I did not end up going to the fight. I've been at so many of those fights. And my first thought was, oh my God, someone is going to get hurt. I had friends in the media sitting there. That kind of stuff cannot happen, especially in the state of Nevada where there's a boxing commission sanctioned fight, because you cannot allow anybody into the crowd. I mean, luckily nobody got hurt. I am not mad at Khabib for his reaction because, of course, like, he is pumped up, full of testosterone, ready to just kill McGregor, and gets pulled off, taps out, and he just goes nuts. Now, the guy that jumped in the ring, I'm pretty sure Dana White said he will never fight in the UFC again. I do know Khabib still hasn't gotten paid, which I do think is wrong. I will say this, the fact that Conor's not, yeah, I agree, but the fact that Conor's not pressing charges tells me he's a little less of a pussy than I thought he was. Because I figure like that would have been the ultimate pinnacle, like, oh, now I'm going to press charges against you. I do think Conor runs his mouth a lot.
Quickly, just to comment on that, I think that's one thing about Conor I think we have to respect. Conor McGregor has, I think, shown that he's not one of these guys that's going to just run. Like Colby Covington is. I know, Drew, you probably know Colby Covington. He's a known snitch in the UFC business. I mean, he'll run his mouth and then run to the police or wherever. Conor, I still think is an old school kind of guy. I think that the talking just went a little too far this time. You could talk about someone the way they look or how they're fat or skinny or whatever, but when you start involving someone's family, religion, and someone like Khabib, who's obviously steeped in religion, Chechnya and that area are very Muslim. They're very traditional. They still live with their parents. Family's very important over there. I know I'm Albanian in my family. Family's very important. You don't allow, I would go to jail for my own family if I had to react. I get where he's coming from. But I do think it's a thing out of for Conor where you can't go to the cops. That would have been a totally bad move. That could have ruined his cred in general. And I think Kelly's dead on the money with that comment.
I think him just tapping out, I was shocked. Like, if I get it, I'm not a male. I am not in that ring getting choked out. But if I'm Conor, you have to let it go that way. You can't be tap, tap, tap. I mean, I was on Khabib. I was happy that how bad he got handled. But I was like, wow, you just tapped out. And of course, the entire room's on Conor. And I should have been like, hey, I'll hold your bet for you. Like, let me put it in for you, because I would have been rich. But they were so shocked that he had tapped out like that. And I'm like, God, like, that just made me lose some discredit for you. Being an Irish girl myself, of course, when Conor first came out, I liked him. I liked the mouthiness. But you're right, big man. Being mouthy is a certain point. Being funny is a certain point. But when you cross a certain line, and somebody else takes it the other way, you kind of get what you deserve. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, the whole bus incident, the pressers. I mean, to be honest with you, the big reason why I bet against Conor in this whole thing to begin with was because what has he been doing this last year? He's been partying his face off and acting like a complete jackass.
I think what we saw in this fight is, Drew, real quick, I think we saw a human being in Khabib that strictly lives like a warrior. He's a psychopath. He'll beat you up outside of the ring, in the ring, doesn't matter where it is. Conor McGregor is in Ireland what they would call a cardboard gangster, in my opinion. He's a guy that will talk the talk, but when it comes down to walking the walk, he's only going to be big time when security's around. It can't get too far. I used to hate those kids when they only caused trouble when there was someone else around or the boys are around. Conor's a guy that does do that. He's not a tough individual, I think, out of the ring. Floyd Mayweather is very similar. None of these guys could win a street fight. Conor's just a guy that has lived off fame and been able to beat up people, and it's been a sanctioned thing. But off the field, he ran with the guy that I think lives this life off and on. This is a guy from that congregates of warlords and gangsters. I mean, this is a tough individual, and Conor's really just playing in the game. If you're asking about the big game of life, Conor would get crushed off the ring.
Kelly, I know you know the UFC real well, and we'll just end it here. I want to get your thoughts on what you think the UFC needs to do going forward, because when Khabib jumps out of the cage and goes and punches people, I was listening. I know you know Clay Travis. He had a spot on his show about, imagine if the punch didn't land on who he was going for, and he punched Robert Kraft or Rory McIlroy, and they fell, hit their head, and died. Could you imagine the lawsuits that would happen? What does the UFC need to do to stop this from happening again?
I mean, that's exactly what I thought was one of my good friends. She was sitting 4 rows back. Like that could have, you're right, it could have been a female even that got hit. Something crazy. I think that's why what we're going to see here is with Khabib, and they're going to lay the hammer on him, whether or not he ever gets his purse. I'm not sure. I don't know what was written in his contract. I actually have a buddy who's a lawyer for the UFC. I was tempted to text him today and see. I don't know if he's going to get paid. Again, if there's something in there that says, hey, you did these things, you now forfeited your purse. I think we're going to see probably the boxing commission come down on the UFC and says, if this happens again, we can't allow, you have got to protect your spectators. And then not only mentioning that, I think we saw a lot more Metro officers there this time than we've seen a lot of other times. You could tell after, before. And I think they did a really good job of containing the little side fights that were going on. But that's something, too, that you have to consider because, like Big Man was saying, there's this group of Russians that are here and there's this group of Irish that are here and they hate each other for whatever reason. And then you throw all this other BS into the mix. And now they really just want to fight each other. I mean, there was 4 or 5 videos I saw just on social media, people recording other fights. Like anybody else could have gotten hurt during those times as well. And I think it should be no different than going to a football game, a basketball game. You should be able to go to these events and not worry about your safety. And I think that's something that we're going to have to show.
Whatever they decide, and I'm going to say this, I don't think Khabib couldn't care less. I don't think we'll ever see him again in this country. And I'll tell you this, when he goes home, it's going to be a lot worse for him than anything he's going to deal with here because his father, I've watched an interview with him earlier, father doesn't seem very happy. And this is actually, I think for a lot of families over there, it's not going to be good when he gets home. I'd imagine he'll deal with this quite swiftly. And if you watch the interview with his father this morning, I wouldn't want to be him either.
Well, guys, good breakdown there. A little longer, but both of you brought great stuff and good ideas on what needs to happen. But we got to get back to college football here. Friday night, USF Tulsa, sleeper game here. Friday night's action looks pretty appetizing as far as college football betting goes. Looks like USF -7.5 and a total of 62. This being the East Coast game with a West Coast game after it, so a doubleheader here. Kelly, how would you look to bet on USF versus Tulsa?
So I was just looking at the power ratings. My buddy has this team power rated 5 points better on a neutral field. And so you got to give a little bit of credit here to the Tulsa Hurricanes, but I'm going to disagree with his number here. I think this number is 7.5 for a reason. I think this number is kind of one of those things where it's trying to entice people to bet the dog because I think USF is the right side. Now, whether or not I follow either of these teams very much, I think we know USF has the better offense. I think this Tulsa team has shown some moments of greatness. I think that Texas game was probably their best one. But then to lose as a favorite at Arkansas State, ugly loss at Temple, and that Houston game we talked about last week, just really ugly. Houston did it push? I can't remember. I got to look at back. I think maybe they did get the cover, maybe with like a late touchdown or something. It was not a game I was really paying attention to. I was watching Utah State BYU. But South Florida hasn't really impressed me too much this year. They did get the win versus Georgia Tech. But besides that, this is going to be an interesting test. But the only way I can really look at this one is the favorite.
Okay, looking towards the favorite. Big man, I agree with Kelly. I think this number is a little short. I think USF's the right side. How do you feel?
I agree with you guys. I've been actually quietly surprised with USF. They've looked quite good. They've escaped in games, which you look at these two teams. South Florida's escaping in games, and Tulsa's finding ways to lose games. And I look no further really than the run game for South Florida. They really were able to establish it last week against UMass. I don't see any reason they don't continue to here. Tulsa's a team that have major issues against the run. I think that was evident in the game against Houston. You also look at the fact that Tulsa leads the country in turnovers committed. They cannot hold on to the football. And for a team like South Florida that's gained 12 this year, they're very opportunistic. I think Tulsa's a pretty bad team. I think Seth Boomer played pretty well for them, but the consistent carousel with quarterbacks hasn't worked for Montgomery's team. Defensively, they're not any good. I think USF continues to roll. They're a team that it could be interesting in this conference. You have Cincinnati and South Florida who played real well this year. Can they maybe give UCF a run for their money? I'm not sure, but I think in this game, South Florida looks poised to maybe run away and hide here. I'm not confident that Tulsa can move the ball. They're a little different than maybe UMass or a team like that can actually move the ball. I'll go for a double-digit victory for the South Florida here.
Okay, and the first one on Friday night. We also have the nightcap here in the Pac-12, Arizona at Utah. Looks like the Utes laying 14. There's 113.5 out there right now at SBR. So if you're liking Utah, maybe shop around for that. Also 51.5 the total. Kelly, we'll come right back at you. How would you look to bet the Cats and the Utes Friday night?
What actually did you say the total was? I didn't see it on my side yet.
I'm seeing 51.5 right now at Bet Online, who just came out about an hour ago.
Okay, something to consider here. All 5 of Utah's games have gone under this season. And that's not necessarily where I'm looking. I just wanted to throw that out there for the trend, guys. I like this Arizona side.
Interesting.
I'm probably going to be on it. Utah, I did not touch the game, but Utah pleasantly surprised me last week as a 4-point dog winning at Stanford after not playing so hot at Washington State. And Arizona, though, I was more than impressed. They went in, or they beat a California team. And this is a very strange Arizona team where I have yet to be able to figure them out. Obviously lost to BYU to start the year, then got smashed at Houston, had a nice bounce back at Utah State, Oregon State, and then had a chance to upset USC. Couldn't get it done, couldn't get the cover. So I'm kind of leaning towards them here. I think probably the general public's going to be a little bit higher on Utah after that win last week, but I'm not sure I'm buying it. This Arizona offense might finally be clicking, at least as more of a cohesive unit. I remember the beginning of the year, I'm like, what is Kevin Sumlin doing? You have a great quarterback and you're not utilizing him well. Not saying he's gotten quite that far yet, but I think we're finally seeing, like I said, this offensive unit come together a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that Utah has the defensive advantage. But like Kelly says, big man, if Arizona's kind of turning around this offense, it might be a buy low opportunity on them. I don't know if I'm going to get there. I kind of lean towards the Utes here, especially at home, short week. The travel will, in all likelihood, affect Arizona more than Utah. How do you look to bet Arizona-Utah, big man?
I like the over. I think this total's too low. I mean, I know Utah, we almost want to just anoint that every game's going to be 13-7, but here's the brass tacks on this game. I'm only coming to you with facts. These are the facts. After the game against against Washington, I believe that Utah had the best pass defense in the country. You know where they are now, Drew? 58th. Because they're not good in the pass. They played 2 teams finally that throw the football, and they got shredded. Arizona's offense is getting better. They're improving. And I don't trust their defense to stop anybody. 51 is too low. I would bet this strictly on number. It's kind of like that Washington State game a few weeks ago against USC. For whatever reason, these line makers in Pac-12 games have gotten some of these totals way wrong. I don't understand this number. We're looking at Utah like they're playing Northern Illinois and Weber State. This is a team that's given up, Drew, like 830 yards over the last 2 games. through the air. Arizona will throw it, and sometimes they'll throw it a lot. If Khalil Tate has any sort of success through the air, I think this game goes over the number. I'm confident Utah can score.
Yeah, what was it a couple weeks ago? USC Washington State. Both of you agreed on the over, and it killed it.
Weird.
Yeah, that was
it was a weird number. Sure.
Yeah, that was. I mean, this one 51.5. And Kelly, what was the stat? Every game Utah's played has gone under?
No, I'm sorry. Every game that Arizona's played has gone under. And then there's another even stat. For the last 6, when Arizona and Utah played each other, have went under. And then Utah is 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games when playing Arizona. So really just trends are trends if you need them to back your argument. But we all know they can kind of be a little BS here and there.
Here's the thing also. I mean, you got to remember too, I mean, every total that Arizona's been involved with has been 57 or higher. This one's only 51. And you have a team that you look at the last 2 games even between these two. I mean, 30-24, 36-23. They're going over. I think this number is just too low. It's a bad number.
I can see that too. Like Drew just mentioned, as he talked about, we're kind of seeing a pretty decent offense now starting to click versus a very good defense. So I think people are going to remember that really good Utah defense. And let me look, I think it's like their last, I mean, obviously we know last week it ended up going under for Arizona, but that Utah team they've hit their last 2 games over versus Washington State and Stanford. Maybe they're just not giving enough credit to this Arizona offense yet. And we know that they can air it out. We've seen them do it a couple different times this year, and maybe this is one of those games.
Sure.
Guys, good stuff so far. We got one more game we're going to talk about here for the SBR scheduling. Feel free to chime in on the chat box of what games y'all want to hear about, any opinions you have betting. And also, if you're liking the content, please give us the thumbs up, the like button. Last game here, a Saturday game, Pitt at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's looked really good. And since the quarterback switch, 3-0? Straight up and ATS. They're having to lay 21 here. I don't believe they've had to lay 21 since Ian Book has taken over. 58 the total. Big man, how would you look to bet Pitt Notre Dame?
It's a tough one. I mean, does Notre Dame ever play on the road? Is the big question. I mean, this team plays every game at home. I mean, it's unbelievable.
They played a really good Virginia Tech team on the road. They played Wake on the road. I mean,
but I've
been losing money since Ian Book came under center. I am not a fan of Ian Book. I've been getting my ass kicked since he became the quarterback.
It just seems like every time I look at this team, other than last week, they've been at home, but I guess they have been on the road lately. But yeah, look, I don't know how to really gauge Pittsburgh. That's kind of the big question for me. I mean, Pittsburgh's looked good at times, and like last week against Syracuse, but was that more of the spot for Syracuse, if anything? You look at stepping up a competition. I mean, they've gotten absolutely killed. They beat North Carolina, big deal. Beat Albany, who cares? I don't think Pittsburgh's very good. I think Pat Narduzzi should be fired. This guy's been so overrated at Pittsburgh. Defensively, they've been an absolute mess. I have no reason to step in front of Notre Dame here. Defensively, they're strong. Pitt to me is a fraud. They're not even a fraud because they've never been good. They're just not good. I think Notre Dame runs away with this one.
Kelly, so you've been betting, you've been fading Ian Book. Why don't you like him?
It's not that I don't like him. It's that the line, I'm looking at the line going, this is too many points. And there I am again, about to make a case for Pittsburgh, and I want to pull my eyeballs out. I'm going to disagree with Big Man. It's not that I think this Pittsburgh team is bad. I was on them versus Syracuse. I was on them versus Georgia Tech and their 2 wins. And the reasoning behind that was because they were at home. This is a better team at home. Plus, again, like you mentioned, that was a spot play also against Syracuse. Coming off that Clemson loss, Pittsburgh coming off that big blowout at UCF. I am not stepping in front of this train, at least not as of right now. Maybe too many beers on Saturday, and I might convince myself otherwise. If I start having a really good morning, that's usually what happens. I feel really good, like, oh, today's my day. This Pitt team's just not that good, and Notre Dame now has their eyes set on being one of those top 4 teams, and it looks like they have a pretty easy way to get there. Beat Pittsburgh, Navy at home. There's another one of those home games. You're right, Big Man. They only have 3 games on the road this year. And then at Northwestern, I do have Northwestern circled. Northwestern has been quite the moneymaker for me the last 2 weeks. So I do have them circled in that spot. And then they get to play Florida State, who sure gave their rival Miami a run for their money, but I'm not sold that Willie Taggart's a good coach or that anything good is coming out of Florida State. So you're right. I would love to take the 21 points and run with it. But this Notre Dame team seems to be able to keep their foot on the gas, as we saw last week in Blacksburg.
And they'll never say this in South Bend, but I think we all will say it if we're in our business or whatever. Notre Dame hasn't really beaten anyone that important, frankly. And what you do in this case is you're not going to have a lot of great games to really do it going forward. So what you have to do is you have to leave no doubt. You have to win 58-10. You have to blow teams out. You're getting this under 3 touchdowns, which is obviously big. Listen, if you're waiting on this game, like if you bet this game Saturday morning, I have to ask you what you're doing in this business, frankly. I'd bet it now. There's no reason to wait. Get it under 3 touchdowns. Be happy with the
number that's if
you
want to bet Notre Dame. If you want to bet Pitt, you got to wait.
Sure. No, sure. If you're betting Notre Dame, sure. Yes. If you're betting Pitt, then yes. You should be betting 5 minutes before the game. But this is a fair number. I think it's a good number. Pitt is just, what would be the reasoning to take Pitt here? I can't see any. I don't see any at all.
You're right. 2-4-2 against the spread in their last 8 games on the road. I knew they were bad on the road. I just had to find a little reason to prove it. And then also 1-7 straight up in their last 8 road games. But I don't think any of us have any inkling that Pittsburgh might upset Notre Dame here. So maybe that says something. Maybe I need to be looking at Pitt a little bit harder.
Hey, we got Junus in the chat box saying, great show. Hit the like button. Thank you, Junior. Big Man just said a comment, Kelly. I want to get your opinion because, he brought up, they're scheduling Notre Dame. However, there is another look to this as far as Notre Dame plays, 10 Power 5 schools plus Navy and Ball State. So it's not like they're meaning to do this. How do you think this comes down as far as them running up the score to get into the playoff?
Well, that's the one benefit Notre Dame has as an independent school is each and every year. Well, obviously it's a few years in advance when they do their schedules. They do get to schedule some of these better schools. And remember, they did struggle even with that Ball State team, who was probably the worst team that they've faced on this list. But you're right, Michigan, Vanderbilt, Wake Forest, Stanford, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Navy, Northwestern, Florida State. Nobody else plays a schedule like that. So albeit they haven't really blown anybody out. I mean, Wake Forest, yes. And then last week, the last 3 weeks since Ian Book's been under center, they have been absolutely destroying not only those teams, but the numbers. I mean, I don't think the market has kind of caught up to Notre Dame, but I do think that's kind of what is making me think this week is now the market's caught up. Maybe a couple weeks ago, this would have been a 17.5 point game. Now I'm getting 3 points of value, 3.5 points of value. And now it's got me looking a little bit more at the dog. But again, this Pittsburgh team is not good on the road, as we saw at versus Penn State on a neutral field, North Carolina, UCF. Both of those games were just not good.
Kelly, do you think UCF gets into the playoff if they run the table?
I know you want me to say yes, but I don't think so. And I don't think it's right. Listen, I don't think it's right. Just because I don't think it's going to happen doesn't mean I don't think it's right. The problem is it all comes down to money. So you need to donate more to your school, Drew, and say, hey, listen, I'm going to donate more money so you guys can spend more money. But the big problem is going to be this. It looks like I don't even know if I don't even think a Big 12 team is going to get in. So I think it could be 2 SEC teams again, and that's the problem. I think that is where the issue arises, is that instead of letting in a school like UCF, who I think would deserve it, they're going to let in Georgia. Because we know Alabama's getting in. I don't see Alabama losing to anybody. You guys don't see Alabama losing to anybody. So who else? If they have to let an outsider in, it's Notre Dame because they're an independent school. But then you still got to let in a Pac-12 school, or do you not? Maybe they don't get in either. UCF, let me look at the rest of their schedule. I don't even have it pulled up, but I would love to cheer for you and say yes.
USF? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they don't play well in the championship game.
Oh, yeah, I would like to see an outsider get in. It's just unfortunate because it's all about the money, and that's the crappy part about it. I mean, you guys can get past Memphis this week. It's 4.5 point road favorite. I think it's going to be a closer one than probably most people want to admit. And then, as you mentioned, a couple other games. I think that they're easily undefeated, but I still don't think the committee is going to let you guys in. And that is where ultimately, playing in the AAC.
No. I don't want to see UCF. No. This team doesn't play anybody. Stop with this. Stop. Who have you beaten? Seriously. No one. Absolutely no one. You beat South Carolina State, Connecticut, who might be the worst team I've ever seen in D1. UNC, who actually you didn't play a game. It was canceled. Florida Atlantic's overrated. They don't play anyone. They haven't beaten anybody. Pittsburgh is terrible. SMU, come on. East Carolina, Navy, that win's not going to mean absolutely anything. Nobody cares about UCF. If you want to be regarded, go to the Big Ten, go to one of these conferences. It's not going to ever happen. Take the stupid national champion thing off your thing. This is the most delusional fan base I've ever encountered. And I mean that.
I want you guys to join the Big 12. We need 2 more teams still. We'll take you guys on board. I'd love to see some games like that.
And you know what will happen?
Well, I also got to admit,
they'll go 500.
No.
Texas Tech.
Kelly, what would their record be if they were in the Big 12? They wouldn't be 6-6. They'd be 9-3.
No. I'm going to disagree with that. I think they might be bowl eligible. I don't think they could beat. I think I gotta agree with Big Man. I don't think they could beat this Texas Tech team. I don't think they could beat West Virginia. I don't think they could beat Oklahoma. I'm not even sure they could beat Oklahoma State. Sure, they could probably beat K-State right now. They could probably beat KU. Maybe if Iowa State had to go to Orlando, but if you guys had to go to Ames in November every other year, that would be definitely an L. I mean, it's tough. But listen, if you guys are on the table, I'd love to see you in, which goes back to the point I didn't get to finish making, is that I would love to see an 8-team playoff. I don't like this 14 playoff. I didn't like it from the very beginning. I hated the BCS. I thought it would be a little bit better, but here we are, and I still hate this idea too. So I do think it should be 8 teams. And then, yes, UCF would get in, and then they would get smashed by a team like Georgia, and then we would never have to have this conversation again.
Good point. Well, let's open it up here. Any games y'all want to throw out? Washington, Oregon, LSU, Georgia, LSU is a big one. Kelly, any games kind of catching your eye as far as?
I haven't done a whole lot. I told you guys this last week. Man, I have been really focusing on NFL. It has been my bread and butter. I finally had a good college weekend. But last night, instead of working on college football, I was working on NFL. It has just been one of those years that I'm never going to get again, and I hope it keeps rolling. The home dogs cashing, the road dogs cashing, life. I mean, when you play 7 dogs on week 5 of NFL, you're just like, Sunday morning, you're like, please, football gods, do not make me look stupid. And to go 5-2, life was really good. I should have went 6-1. The Dolphins blew it. So I haven't done a whole lot with college football, but I will say I did bet LSU catching a touchdown at home already. I'm pretty sure the sharp guys are going to be on this one as well. This is an LSU team I was on last week, and I knew I was on the wrong side by about Friday, but I had to stick with LSU -2, and they had a couple of different opportunities. Burrow showed that he wasn't invincible. I know he's not a good quarterback on paper, but at least he wasn't turnover prone. And we can blame the receivers on a couple of those interceptions. We can blame him. It doesn't really matter. But I think this is a bounce back game here. This is a Georgia team who is absolutely thumping everybody. So when this line came out at 7, I said, wait a minute here. What am I missing? Started looking at some of the guys' power ratings. I have one guy who has a power rated 6. I have one guy who has a power rated 4. So I had to bet LSU early. Don't be surprised to see some sharp money come in, and maybe Georgia shows that they aren't quite invincible, at least on the road at Death Valley.
Okay, good stuff, Kelly. Big Man, what about you? Anything jumping off the page at you?
Yeah, I got one or two. I'm looking at Penn State this week. I think they might be in a real nice spot here, and maybe to take out some frustration out on Michigan State. Michigan State looks maybe buried. Maybe we just need a coffin and a nail. Northwestern was a bad loss. Now you're facing a Penn State team off a bye. You have to figure ruthless James Franklin will be ruthless in this game. Spread's only 13.5. You're getting a home game here. This Penn State offense is very good. One of the problems Michigan State's had is the pass defense has been very poor. I think with the last week or so to really lick their wounds and kind of move on, there's still plenty of season to play. They're averaging 50 points a game. I think they maybe send a little bit of a message at some point and say, this Michigan State team's done. Penn State still has some big games coming up. You still are going to, obviously, a season has to continue no matter what happened. and I think they're looking to prove a point here. I kind of look towards Penn State. Another one I have my eye on is this total Alabama Missouri. I got to be frank with you. I'm not sure there's a total where I wouldn't bet this game over the number. If I lose, I lose. But Missouri are a team that all they're going to do is throw the football. I think the one knock on Alabama right now is the pass defense. This team will give up yards. Alabama scored, Drew and Kelly. They've scored 124 points in the first quarter this year. That's 28 teams haven't even scored that this season in college football. This offense is possibly one of the best we've seen over the last 10 years in college football. They're absolutely unbelievable. The efficiency is the highest it's ever been in the 14 years of keeping offensive efficiency stats. They have a perfect record. No one's ever beaten it. Missouri is absolutely terrible. They've scored 60 points twice this year. You might be able to add a third one to this one. This line opened up 74.5 over number. Lock it up.
All right, one other game real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, Drew. I was just going to give out one more game really quick. I do like Iowa State catching almost a touchdown at home. I'll leave it short and sweet. This is definitely going to be a team where West Virginia is going to be a team that everybody's going to bet on. Why? They look like they have the better offense. They look better on paper. But Kyle Kempt is going to be back for Iowa State from everything I've been told so far. And so look for this Iowa State team to pull that lovely Ames card and pull something out of their ass, because just like they did last week at Oklahoma State, this is a better team than we've seen on paper. I'm still not sure how they lost. I don't know how they lost to Oklahoma. They had a chance there, and how they looked so terrible against Iowa to start the season. But this is a team that West Virginia, I have been betting against and losing money at a rapid rate. They're pretty much like the Notre Dame of the Big 12 for me. Like I said, I had Texas Tech in that one as well. But West Virginia is a little bit overrated here. And I think we kind of saw it last week against KU. I did take KU plus, I think, 27.5, and it didn't even have to sweat it. So this is a team that we're kind of seeing come back down to earth a little bit. And on this road game at Iowa State, I definitely think is Iowa State's a live home dog.
Yeah, I think this number is pretty telling too. Just at 6.5, and it opened at 4.5. So I think they're kind of wanting you to bet West Virginia. You know what I mean? Even though it's in Ames, Iowa. Yeah. Weird things happen in Ames, Iowa. What about this Utah State minus 24 against UNLV? Kelly, I know you know UNLV. Armani Rogers was out, and they look like crap. Would you look to lay 24 with Utah State in Logan, Utah?
I have not looked at this game yet. Sorry, I'm frantically scrolling through my spreadsheet. Here is I took New Mexico last week after I found Armani Rogers was going to be out. My buddy texted me and said, "What do you think?" And then again, we talked about this on the show. We were all in agreement on Utah State. Now they're 5-0 against the spread. I'm not looking to lay this huge number, but I don't think UNLV has an answer here. Without their star quarterback, I mean, he's out pretty much for the rest of the season from what I'm hearing. At least maybe he'll be back for a bowl game, but they're not going to make a bowl game. So hopefully now I've solidified my under 6 wins for the season for this Rebels team. And I wouldn't lay it necessarily right now, but that's the only way I could look would be to lay the points here.
Yeah. Spike saying, love Utah State. They're fun to watch. Yeah, I'm going to be on Utah State and lay the big number. Big man, anything you want to throw out before we shut this down?
Yeah, I mean, one of the saving graces for UNLV was we all knew they couldn't defend you, me, Kelly, and 8 listeners, but at least they had Armani Rogers, and they could move the ball, and not anymore. Utah State looks like a buzzsaw. I wouldn't want to step in front of them. 24 looks like a pretty solid number. UNLV is, without Armani Rogers, a bad football team. This could be a tough night out in Logan. I wouldn't want to step in front. Buzzsaw right now for Utah State. I like that play, Drew.
We got John Roy saying Bama's weakness is the pass defense. Heard you say that as well, big man. I agree with you on that over because Missouri's going to push the tempo. I could see a lot of points as well, big man. And I think the stat is what? Tua has 25 incompletions and 18 touchdowns. I mean, through 6 weeks of football? That's
it's
crazy.
So something we get out on our Saturday show that has been great for three weeks in a row is if you want to bet Alabama, bet them in the first half because they have left the back door open now. They left the back door open against A&M. They left the back door open against ULL, and they left the back door open with 12 seconds left with Arkansas. I cashed all 3 of those and did not feel bad for a single soul that laid the huge hammer with Alabama. It was great. So if you are looking to bet Alabama in that one, make sure you guys stick with the first half. It has been the easiest bet all season.
Well said. That's a good way to wrap this up. Follow Kelly on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas, the big man on campus at Jeff Nadeau. And we will be back Thursday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And also tomorrow with some NFL talk, same time, same place. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.